right. Welcome for, I think this is our third alumni chat for
Whoa,
spring. I can't believe
awesome.
it. Spring 2025. I want to welcome Lauren Presley for joining us. Lauren is currently a production coordinator at NBC Universal, but she was most recently an NBC Page in New York City. She graduated in 2023, so is a very recent graduate. Lauren, thank you for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Okay, so I know that there's a lot of questions about the NBC Page program, so
Mhm.
I figured we'd start there
For sure.
and just kind of lean into what does an NBC Page do? Very broad question. Take it away.
Yeah. So hi everyone. I'm Lauren. So nice to meet everyone. Broadly, an NPC page has like two main responsibilities. It's the rotation first, and then audience services. So how the whole year works is you do 3-month rotations. So you do interviews and get placed in an assignment. And that could be anywhere in the company. It could be in ad sales. It could be in marketing. It could be on a show. It could be in operations, and you kind of go through an interview process to understand what assignment might be best for you and eventually get placed. Once you're in a rotation, you have weekly responsibilities to do tours or to do audience services. Audience services means like whenever the show gets loaded in, you're working with the audience, so helping them, get to their seat, checking everyone in, ticketing people, that sort of thing. And so it's maybe once or twice a week. It's about 4 hours a shift, and that's when you work with all the other pages, and you hang out with them, and you have mixed cohorts and that sort of thing. And then tours are about 2 hours. You can do them on the weekends or during the week. You also do private ones. And then audience services can also be on the weekend, so that can be for, like, the Today Show. You can get placed at a news show like MSNBC, or you can get placed at a show like SNL where you're working Saturday evenings early into Sunday morning. So broadly, you kinda just serve the NBC needs, but that can look very different depending on a person's interest and then where they end up getting placed.
So I'm looking at your background and it looks like you have something SNL, SNL. Is this
Yeah,
something?
I have my cue card.
Your cue card. Okay, so
Yeah.
like I guess you did some introductions too.
Yes, this was, so I had a rotation on SNL, and so I was there from January to May, the 2nd season of season 49, or second half of season 49, and then this was my first show. It was the Jennifer Lopez, Io Debris show, and this was from her monologue. So, um, that rotation was called a supplemental, so I had my full-time rotation was during the week in the Today Show, which was awesome, and then I would come in every Saturday and work on SNL, and I did what was called like a Yuki, which is where you lead other pages and you load the entire studio, you manage like a VIP list, you're in charge of backstage talent, you're in charge of cast talent, and you get really involved in the show, but I liked being able to kind of double up on that rotation, and I doubled up on the next one too, because I wanted to do as many things as possible.
Great. So I'm thinking not just about what you did at the Page program, but maybe even let's go backwards in time when you were still at Georgetown and thinking
Yeah.
through or graduating. What made you think that that's something you wanted to do? Like what brought you to the Page program?
I kind of like, in full transparency, it was a pretty big pivot from what I had been doing during Georgetown. I my first internship came like out of luck, which is a frustrating answer, but it's the truth in my case, unfortunately. But fortunately for my path, I guess, I was in the Philademic Society, and someone was leaving their internship at the House Oversight and Reform Committee, and it was a press internship. And I knew I was interested in media, didn't want to fully commit to entertainment yet. And then also was in the MSB doing international political economy. So I was like, okay, like worlds meet. And so I did that and did a series of press internships. So I went from there to USAID to Bernie Sanders. And then I did one film internship and I loved it. And I had a film minor. And I got a lot of advice post grad because I was getting a couple offers, mostly in like the MSB world, just like consulting and like finance sort of things. But I kind of knew my heart really wasn't in it. And one of my professors, his name is George Comer, he works at the MSP. He's so wonderful. He was like basically telling me like you have a lot of time to recover and so you should take a lot of risks in like your first year of graduating. And so like part of that risk was like, okay, like I'm going to apply to this program that sounds kind of made up and that I've never heard of before. And that's in New York, which was somewhere I've never visited before. And it was opposite to like a lot of where I was going because I was kind of set on moving to LA, getting a press job there and seeing if I can get an entertainment. And Jackie was there for all of this. She was so helpful. But yeah, so I just kind of put my hat in and didn't really expect anything from it. And really hoped it would work out and knew I could um, kind of advertise what experiences I had for it because they look for really diverse candidates with very diverse experiences. So it was just like kind of throwing whatever stuck to a wall sort of logic. And then it ended up working out, which is awesome. But yeah, not so much thought into it. Just like thought through it, I guess.
Well, you knew you wanted to go in entertainment, so there was like
Yes,
it did lead you like all your internships kind of led you into like finally kind of into the media space. So
exactly.
so then a question, because folks that are either watching now or in the recording that might be in MSB or doing a path where they think is it's a very structured process. If I recall, like you were applying maybe in the was it the May June timeframe? So maybe talk us through like when did you start applying? When did you start applying? When did you get the NBC page job, and what was that process look like?
Yeah, so the time, like, after graduation was so fun, but also so stressful. I started applying for jobs, honestly, like, fall of my senior year because I feel like that's more of the I almost said MSNBC, oh my god. That's, like, the business school, like, timeline, and so I think I was just doing it to make myself feel better, but I really started actively applying my senior spring, and it was to a lot of press internships or, sorry, press positions. The way NBC Page program hires is in cohorts. So there's like a spring, fall, summer, winter cohort. And so you apply when another cohort starts is when you apply for the following one. So for example, if you wanted to do like the winter cohort, you would apply in September when like the fall cohort is starting. And so I applied in May. I had gotten a job offer from another organization in June, but I had 3 interviews for the PAGE program and didn't find out I got in until the first week of September, I feel like, when I was supposed to move back to DC for another job. And then I had 3 weeks to move to New York. So it is a really, really long process and then, like, really short once you get it to, like, get everything together and move. Um but it wasn't hard. Like, that's what I tell people. It's just like a test of patience, I feel like, and a test of, like, how you are under pressure, but I don't think it's like, I don't think it's kind of like and not knocking on it, but, like, I feel like investment banking and finance and consulting, like, whenever you do those sorts of interviews where it's like a panel or it's like a group interview, it feels like sort of trying not to trip up and, like, there's trying to see what your weak spots are. Whereas for this, it felt like they genuinely wanted to see you do very well, and they wanted to get to know you, and, like, they kind of wanted you to do your best, and show it like, why you would be a good fit. So I don't find the process hard. It was definitely just, like, long and, like, a little bit of a risk if you don't have other stuff lined up. But it's nice that it happens. They hire so regularly, so you could always apply for a next one. That's a lot something that a lot of pages do is like most pages get it on their second time applying, which is I think good to know and comforting.
Yeah, and I think maybe just with that timeline is so key. It's that for a lot of Georgetown students, the expectation is that there'll be like a job in hand in May or June, and entertainment media is a bit later. So
Yeah,
like when you got this, it was actually later.
it was pretty late. It
It's
was pretty
helpful to
late.
kind of know those timelines that it may not line up right at graduation. So question on like the process, because you had said it, I think you said you were maybe three interviews that you did or sets.
Mhm.
Any advice on maybe the kinds of interview questions? I realize that they might say, hey, you can't tell everyone our process, but any advice you can give on like interview questions and things if students make it that far that they should be ready for?
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty behavioral. I think reaching out to a current or former page is always a great idea. But basically, the interview process is if you weren't an NBC intern, you have to start with like a virtual interview, which is the one where it's like pre recorded and you're not actually talking with anyone. It's just like you're recording yourself. If you get past that, you do, I think you go straight to panel. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. So the first thing is you submit your resume and you submit like a really short cover letter. I think it's like a max of like 200 words, and it's basically asking like why would you be the best page, or like why do you want to do the program. I think that to me is the most important part because it kind of kickstarts like my logic of interviewing for things is like I can kind of talk and pitch into anything, but like the getting your foot in the door is usually like the hardest part. And so I took that writing portion really, really seriously, and just tried to culminate like all of my experiences into like examples of rotations and examples of like why that would make me an asset in a really diverse page. Um, and so after you do that, you get accepted to an interview, the recorded interview, and then you wait for like a month and a couple weeks, I think, to see if you made it to panel, which is the thing that people feel are really scary. And I think it is like anxiety inducing, but it's really not as bad. Panel is about 3 hours, it's split up into 3 rounds. The first round is a group interview. So everyone that's interviewing that day, they pick like 6 days where they're going to interview whoever they decided is going to panel. You interview with everyone who is interviewing that day, and they ask you pretty, I feel like pretty softball questions like why the page program, tell us about yourself, how do you deal with stress, like what are key challenges, what do you like about NBC, like that sort of thing. And like the tell me about yourself part, I think is really important because it really shows how people are branding themselves and like what kind of page you'll be. So I think it's really important to like reflect on that for yourself and to give like a really like nuanced and thoughtful answer. After you do that, you get put into small groups, and that has like rounds in it as well. Your small group, you'll answer questions together, and they get more and more specific as you keep going. So it's like, how do you work in a group? And like, what do you think is good feedback? Like, what leadership skills are important to you? Like, how do you listen? And like that sort of thing. And then another part of that interview is a group problem. So my group problem was the Olympics are coming up, which is why it's also good to talk to a page because they can tell you like what is coming up for NBC and like what things they might ask you about. So the Olympics are coming up, and they're like, so how would you use other shows or other properties of NBC to market the Olympics? And they were basically getting at the marketing principle that NBC uses, which is called symphony, which is where you leverage other brands to support other brands. So I said like, oh, I really liked and I actually just watched this episode with my mom. It wasn't because of my research, but I was like, oh, I had seen like a Bravo episode where there was like Paralympic candidates like on, and they like learned how to cook, and I thought it was really awesome. And I think I would do something with like Despicable Me and like something like that. And they're basically seeing how well you know the brands and like how you know to leverage them together because it is a big part of NBC. And then the last part of the group interview is giving a tour, or at least for the last part always changes for everyone, but because the tour was coming back after the strikes, I think that's why they asked us that. And you could give a tour of anything. A lot of people gave a tour of like their college campus or like their apartment or something, and you don't like take the laptop anywhere. You just have to like say it to everyone. But I did like a tour of my grandma's DVR set or something like that because it was where I, like, found my love of film, and she has a really, really intense, like, index of, like, CDs or whatever, um, and so I did something like that. I don't know if I would use that, but, and then, like, the last round, is an individual interview, so it's with a page program manager, and they ask you really, really specific questions, like, "Walk me through your resume, tell me about this internship, what kind of rotations do you see yourself doing?" And they don't expect you to know every single rotation and know kind of what you like. They don't want you to be like, I want to integrated marketing at like Peacock brand. Like they don't want that, but they do want you to have a direction with like some level of open-mindedness. And it's like, what kind of manager style is best for you? Like, how do you learn best? Like, how would you like? like solve this in a group. And then there's a big portion left for like, what questions do you have for me? And I think that's a really important section too, because they want you to have a lot of questions. And I think one of my questions was, I was a first gen student and I didn't know anyone in New York. I was like, how do you feel like the program supports people that are making this huge transition and pivot? And can you speak to like other pages that have had similar circumstance and done this program and what their experience was? Um, and they really appreciated that question. So sorry, I'm blabbering. But yeah, that's basically like that's basically the interview process. So it's definitely long. And after that, I waited for a couple weeks. I want to say like 3 or 4 weeks, and then I heard that I got in.
No, that's great. That's
Yeah,
great because that's kind of the precision that when people ask me what to prepare for, and I have to send them either to another page or to Glassdoor sample interviews, but that was very that was great. I
okay, good,
did not
good.
blab at all. That's great. That's great. Um, so, I'm thinking like there's two questions of wrestling with that I want you to talk about both. But one
Sure.
is, of course, like any other advice, but I'm thinking like the page program is it's a year. Is it a year or two?
It's a year required and a half year optional. So after you graduate, you go into a grad period, which is where you only do audience services, but the rest of your time, you basically get paid to look for your next opportunity. Um, and so that's an additional 4 months.
Okay. So, all right. So we'll talk about that piece, but maybe or is there any last advice that you give anybody for the application for the page or just wanting to be a page or anything that they should put on a resume to really highlight that?
I think the best thing about the page program, at least for me, was that they don't look for people with entertainment experience necessarily. Like they, of course, take people with entertainment experience, but like some of my best friends in the program came from like a business background. One of them like just did their MCAT and got to med school and then changed their mind. They take people who've completed their masters, people who, like, and not like that. Like age isn't even a factor either. Like there's a couple people in the program that are like in their early 30s that like had done a career and then wanted to transition into entertainment. And so there's really not, I think that's a really freeing aspect of it, is that there's not like a cookie cutter example. And I know everyone says that, but it is true. Like no page is the same. I think the other thing that bring me a lot of comfort was that they do read every single application they get. And so I think factoring that into what you're writing, the best advice I got when I was applying was like, you have to show every step of the way why you are the best page and like why this cohort won't be completed without you in it. And I think framing it like that rather than like tell me about yourself is more helpful because tell me about yourself. You could just be like, I'm from Austin and like I did this because it was cool and like that sort of thing. And I can tend to get lost on that. But when it's like, tell me about yourself in the context of why you would be the best page, like adding that level of it kind of tailors like exactly what they want to hear, which is not like a cookie cutter answer, but it is like they don't want to do the work of like what your experiences are to why you'd be a good page. You have to kind of build all those bridges for them. And I think um, just you don't have to also be a big thing is, like, they don't like people that are I don't wanna say that, sorry, bad language. They don't want people who are just super fans of the show, and they don't want people who, like, already know exactly what they wanna do, and I also wouldn't advise someone that has already had, like, PA experience or wants to go PA or wants to work in production to do it because it might be a really frustrating program because the rotation aspects of it, I think I'm very fortunate in the rotations I got, but you could get ad sales every single rotation. So you have to be really open to like what kind of experiences you can get. And I believe that every experience is good experience because it teaches you something. But in general, I think if you are truly open minded, if you truly just want to like be thrown around anywhere, if you want a good way to go to New York and like have like a good friend group to help with your transition into New York, um, I think it's a great program, but I think you have to be really honest with why you'd be a great page because like having that solid foundation helps you through all the interviews. And then LA is a whole other different beast because they hire only a third of pages that they hire for New York because New York does all live productions and you need a lot of people for that. And LA is all corporate, but it's more like entertainment focused weirdly. So like New York, you can be in news, you can be in entertainment, you can be in corporate side, but LA is mostly entertainment. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but that would be my piece of advice is like say why you'd convince them through your answers why you would be the best page. Be yourself. And in the interviews, like it can be a lot of pressure. Let yourself feel that pressure before and after the interviews. In the interview, just like let it go because it's not going to help you if you're in the interview being like, only 1% of people get in. And like, what am I saying? And what did that person just say? And like, they kind of know when you're doing that and you can't really like convince people in that state. So just like have like a conversation. That's why I love having informationals because you get so used to just having conversations with people you don't know. And so it like interviews just feel like informationals at a certain point. But yeah, those would be my core pieces of advice.
No, that's great. So I think I'm going to my last question. Then I'm going to go to like
Sure.
stage at the end of the page program and where you are now. But
Yeah.
so for students that are here now, are there certain skills that you would recommend that, granted, like there are some people who are watching this who are more creative, and there's some that are more business side like you are. I mean, but just generally, are there skills that you would recommend that they would develop and courses or anything that they should put on a resume or anything in that you can think of in the skill space?
In terms of hard skills, I would say in general, creatively, I wish that I took hard skills in my own portfolio more seriously, not in terms of the page program, because I feel like they look to the page program, in my opinion, which can kind of be kind of a discouraging answer, is they really look that you have experience in professional environments. That's not always true. It almost doesn't matter like where it is as long as you can kind of show why that would make you a good like consumer facing person or like why you work well on a team or how have you had experience on a manager or with a manager. I think they require you when you apply to at least have one professional experience, but I think having at least like two or three is really really helpful, which I know is like a hard ask. But even if that's like I know one of mine at some point was like I was a career counselor at the career center in the MSB, or like I was a resident advisor, or like something like that. Just that you've worked consistently, I think gives you a lot of soft skills that are really important to them. But I wish I took my hard skills like Adobe and learning After Effects and Illustrator at Georgetown because one, it's free. Two, there's people like students and professors that really know how to use it. And when you're doing networking in New York in general, like the PACE program is only a facilitator into like where you want to eventually go. When you really want to get into like creative fields, the first thing people are like, "Oh, send me your portfolio." And it's like, man, like I'm glad I have a portfolio, but I wish I took it more seriously cuz like I can tell some of my own filmmaking was like to just get it done and to like get that due date in and because I had a lot going on. But I think if I took it with a little more care, I would be more comfortable with where it's at and want to send it and blast it out to more people. And so while you're still at Georgetown, take advantage of like there's free cameras in the library. There's free like software in the library. Like there's people that want to work and build their portfolio. Like learn how to do a Squarespace where you can like go down and ask someone that knows how to code, like how to embed videos and like because like when you do that after you graduate, it's just like a little overwhelming. Um, so those would be two things. Is like the page program specifically looks for a couple professional experiences to know you have the soft skills to be placed. They basically just have to trust that they can place you on any team and you'll be great, or they can place you in public and you'll be amazing public representative. And then in New York and entertainment in general, having a really good portfolio that you feel is representative of your work was way more important than I thought it would be personally. But yeah, those are my two tidbits on that.
That's great. And I will also plug Lounger. They so great. Those people are fantastic. The librarians, the people that are kind of in the media center, and they also do they also do free workshops in
No,
like
that's awesome.
InDesign, video editing, podcasting. So a lot of students don't know that. So just want to let you know that are
That's awesome.
participating in that.
Heck yeah.
Okay, so we're coming quickly to our 30-minute mark. So I'm gonna end with that last question, which is, all right, you had said that like in the last 6 months or so, it's almost like they keep you on in order to get to the next piece. So can you describe
Yeah.
the end part of the page program and what that next step looks like?
Yeah, so basically how it works is you graduate, and so, um that starts your 4-month period to have a job. So you can leave at any point in that 4-month long period, whether you have a job or not. It's just like whatever you decide. So, like for example, some people got into law school and they left. Some people moved back home and they left. I ended up staying the entire time because when we graduated, um, it was a really hard time. I wouldn't change the time I started the PACE program for anything, but it is a really difficult time to graduate in September and your grad period to be from October to January because a month and a half gets taken out for like holidays. And then NBC also went on a holiday or sorry, a hiring freeze. So it was a really difficult grad period. And the whole time that you're doing it, you get scheduled once to 3 times a week for like tours or audience services. But the rest of the time, you're in the page office and looking for jobs internally, externally. But you really only communicate in internal jobs. Like that's where you get the most support, obviously, because it's kind of a retention program. Um, and I feel really fortunate because my first rotation was in talent acquisition, and so I knew all the recruiters, which was really helpful. And so it was just like a hard time though. Like we would check the board a lot, and like it was just a case of like nothing got posted for like a month or two. But a good benefit to being a page is you can enter into this thing called like a second year trainee, which is where essentially you keep your page program benefits and a team can hire you on as a freelancer so you can still get that freelance experience while not losing any health benefits and like PTO and like that sort of thing, which is like really feasible for me. And so you get at least 12 months of that after you graduate the page program. And so the contract I'm in now is a 3-month chunk of that second year trainee. And so I could technically do another second year trainee contract for 9 months. And it's meant to kind of bridge your transition out of the page program into what you would like to do. And so my team is someone another page referred me, which is also nice. You enter in this like page alumni. It's kind of like the Hoya Gateway. They have a huge database for page alumni, and so one of them told me about it, and it's coordinating all the production for the cable show. So it's like Bravo, E, Sci-Fi, Oxygen, Uni Kids, like that sort of thing. But it's meant to kind of still be in that period where you're still searching for a permanent staff role. You can also leave second year training contracts whenever you get a staff role, and that's kind of the point of them is so you can find something permanent. Um, but yeah, that's kind of what the end of the program looks like.
Great. So are you in a staff role now, or are you in a trainee? Is
I'm in a trainee role, so it's like technically a freelance role until April, and I'll keep looking for staff roles while I'm doing this job. But I kind of like it. I'm not in a rush to be anywhere permanently, and it lets me try out more teams too, while I still have page benefits, which is really nice.
excellent. Okay, so everyone, we're at 12:31, which is pretty good that I kept it to 30 minutes. So for those of you who are live, thank you for joining, and I will give you a chance to ask Lauren your own individual questions. But for those of you who are joining us in the recording, thank you for joining, and thank you, Lauren, for joining me today.